Okay, so we are spiritual beings in a body, in an artificial matrix, and we are all connected to other spiritual beings in a body in this artificial matrix, if you want to look at it that way. If, as I've said before, you don't want to go with the artificial idea and you want to stick with the natural world, which I certainly would have preferred to myself, because I think that that is the only thing that is conducive to a spiritual human being or a human being. As I've said before, there's no difference between a spiritual human being and a human being. Oh, okay, so I better correct myself here because, yes, I'm confusing myself and everyone else, no doubt. But look, yes, of course, there is a difference between a spiritual human being. Look, all human beings are spiritual beings. If they are born a human, then they are meant to be spiritual beings. But like myself and most of us, we've went way off the path, shall we say, or as many others have said, we went down a different path. In other words, we've ventured into the non-human, artificial world, instead of staying with the natural, spiritual, human world or being. Of course, I should throw these videos completely away. I realise that now because already I'm contradicting myself, because how you would say to me, you would say logically, what is she talking about? And of course I don't know, I never do. And I'll have to honestly say that. So you'll have to fill in the gaps and the pieces for me. Or go to the Matrix demigods, because they will fill them in very easily for you, and they will make good videos, and you'll be greatly enlightened, whereas you'll only be confused by mine, because I'm a simple, pathetical human being that, yes, has been down the wrong path in an artificial world for a lifetime and has ventured more into that domain and believed it to be real. The misconception is that if you think something is natural when it is not, then you're already, that's right, in Alice in Wonderland or The Wizard of Oz or all these things, which also they now use very prominently to describe the situation, I've noticed. Now, this is why, I don't want to make videos, and why very soon I will cease to make them. Because I am a human being, I do feel sensitive and kind of a joke in this reality, and even in making the videos, because you realise this situation, and you realise that that everything you say has already been said by the demigods of the Matrix. And when I say the demigods of the Matrix, I keep having to go over these things, in other words, because I assume that maybe someone hasn't heard a video before, or and that's probably stupid, really, but either way, the demigods of the Matrix are almost anyone apart from myself, dare I say, and you'd say, well, why is she not one of the demigods? Like, why am I not one of the demigods of the Matrix, making a video so that you will be so enlightened and will say, wow, well, all I can say, and I heard someone else say this that was a demigod only a day or two ago, you shouldn't listen to me either because I could be. So basically, it doesn't matter what you say. It really, look, when it really comes down to it, and this person said the same thing too also, because they already had, so this matrix is now over. Everything is covered, as I've said before. It's checkmate. The game's already been played. At my end, and at my end, the game has already been played. It's checkmate. In other words, in Sydney, Australia, where I am, in my particular domain, that's how I see it. I see it as already over. The game's been played. The spiritual being has lost in those that lost this game. But, yes, that is kind of, it's kind of distressing in a way. But if you look at it logically, which is what I've been doing for the last year, and through logic only, I have come to a spiritual conclusion. Because there has not been a spiritual path open to me. But even logic, if you use your intelligence at some sort of spiritual level, logically, and look at things just as a normal human would, instead of as like something that has been programmed from the environment or from the matrix, because essentially, if you allow, for the reality that everything is a staged reality, of course, like myself, it's impossible not to play, and it's impossible not to believe at least some of it. And most people believe all of it. And how else could you not? So what I'm trying to say is, it's no, it's no, it's understandable that if a human being at this late stages of realization for some of us of what is the reality, has been under misapprehension about everything. In other words, it's no reflection on a spiritual human being to realise or for me even to say that it's checkmate, that my domain, that my particular area is lost and gone, and the matrix has full dominion, and the human being is pretty much cornered and has lost this chess game, if you know what I'm saying. It's not a lessening of a human being that this has happened. In fact, I actually, even though it is checkmate, even though it's a loss, it's no it's no, it's not, it's not saying that the human being is less. In fact, if you look at it realistically, it only proves what I've been saying since the first video, or from early on, because, you know, of course it has to be checkmate, because the odds against single individual human beings is overwhelming. You know, you can't have an army of one against an army of a million. It's just, but that only shows the power of the one, that a million have to be levelled against one in order to get the checkmate. You know, if you look at it logically, that's what I've done. That's how I came to my, excuse me. That is how I came to my logical conclusions about what a human being is, and how their spirit, we've often heard the spirit of the human thrown up at us in countless movies, and in the idea, oh, you have a lot of spirit, even to play, in the Matrix, even, they say the spirit of the game, like in sports and do. That is the Matrix throwing up to humans, what they are and what they should be. And it is, like, it's very hard to put, like I say, you have to put all these things together. It was like the previous video where you saw a demigod of the Matrix. This movie, where you saw a demigod of the Matrix. If like the Amadeus movie, right? The demigod of the Matrix was Salieri, the fellow who was the court favourite, composer, and was very regarded, respected, idolised, up until the point to a human in the form of Mozart, a human who had the spirit of real genius music in him, because all humans have real genius in them. They just don't know it, because it's used by the Matrix for the demigods. I'm not sure why they didn't. I'm not sure why they didn't at that time, but maybe it was maybe the technology, they weren't able to use the maybe they weren't able to use the technology so much in that time, because it was many hundreds of years ago, supposedly. But as you can see, I'm half getting laughing and half confused, because, there are many ways, as I say, to take that movie from different angles. You could say that, theoretically speaking, Mozart should have been the demigod of the Matrix. If Mozart was alive today and he was recognised, he would be the demigod of the Matrix today. But you see, even I don't have all the answers, naturally, and I can't go back in time or forward or whatever, even though I say it's all one. It's all one time, I think. The only reason I say that is because otherwise the game wouldn't still be being played. See, to me, I do everything from logic, because despite being completely engulfed by the Matrix, I still have a bit of logic. Not as much as what I should have. And also, all human beings have logic, but it's basically consumed by the Matrix, because we get consumed by the Matrix. Because, in other words, if you believe the technology, if you believe everything that's around you, if you believe every bit of information you get. If you believe your reality is real and that every bit of information you get is real and only maybe some of it is wrong, then you're consumed by the matrix. So often, you won't look at things logically necessarily. You'll think you are, but you'll be operating with logic through the matrix. In other words, you'll be getting the information from the matrix, which is matrix information, which is how the matrix wants you to think. And then you will think logically from that, you see. And that's how human beings get to play in the matrix. That's how I've been playing in it for a lifetime. Because you never ever stop and say, that doesn't really look logic, but it must be logic because it's what everyone else says, or it's because it's what the matrix says, or it's because it appears to be natural. And that's another thing too. And it appears to be not I'm not explaining this well again. Dear. Look, oh dear, I get so frustrated. I do, I'm so sorry. It's... See, this is why I say it's a mind game, because unless you really understand it and throw it out, even to think remotely, to believe anything is real around you, you have to question it. But you have to question it in a way in comparison to the past. That's another thing. I think that's how I come to a conclusion, because I compare to a few years ago. Most people just move with the matrix. They go with the flow. The matrix pulls them along. That's happened to me too over a lifetime. But in recent times, because of the matrix exposing itself, coming down at full force, naturally then, it's easy then to become more logical and say, whoa, things have changed. Whoa, yes, things were different years ago. And you notice how things are changing fast. Whereas, if the matrix doesn't expose itself, if it stays covert, I would still be swept along too. I would still be, even though the changes are now coming thick and fast, the matrix is changing all the time, I still would have not noticed, or at least if I'd noticed, I would have noticed more than some people, because I'm detail-minded. That's why the matrix isn't so keen. I have a love-hate relationship with people that focus on details, because if you do that, even if you notice a detail, that's one thing, but if you notice it and let it go, that's good. The matrix likes that, but they still take notice of the fact that you notice, because essentially the matrix doesn't like you to notice the details, because if you notice the details, that's noticing the matrix. That's noticing that things are not natural. That's noticing that there is changes taking place, and they're changes that if you are someone, say, like myself, that is prepared to, that likes a natural, free-flowing world, as opposed to a controlled, contrived, artificial, technological world, which I make no apologies for that in any way. In any way at all. The technology is our downfall in every possible way. Because, if you're already playing a game in a matrix, to have technology around you is just, it's just giving, it is the checkmate. That's why I say it's checkmate. Look, it's checkmate over me and anyone else who likes a natural free world, or who likes a world where human beings are not controlled by technology. It is checkmate because of the technology. This is my point. This video was supposed to be about a movie. I can't believe that I haven't done the movie and that I've gone off, because these are more important. The movies make the points. if we look, the technology is the final straw. The technology is the checkmate. Without the technology, I would not be checkmated, okay? Where I am, Sydney, is checkmate. It's over, you know. And this is largely because of technology. Sure, even with less technology or without it, if you have a matrix type system where you can seduce humans, even real humans, even, you know, when I say real humans, I mean even those who think they're spiritual. You know, they might think they're spiritual. I'm sure most people probably do. Well, maybe not. Some do, some don't. You know, it depends. But either way, that's not the point. You know, I didn't consider myself spiritual. I still don't. But I say I know that that is the bottom line. I know that that is what we were meant to be. You probably say that sounds ridiculous. It's like saying, hey, I'm a heathen, but I believe in God. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I'm, I believe in the material world, but I think I live in an artificial matrix where nothing is real. Strawberry fields where nothing is real, where it's all just almost like an hallucination or a hologram or, and I don't know what I'm talking about. At least I openly say that. It's one thing to say it's a fairy tale, but, it's another thing to say that your fairy tales, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, that's the way it is in a matrix. Does anyone know anything in a matrix? I know that in a matrix, that is the whole thing. The whole point is to make everything convoluted so that you don't understand anything. And because you aren't given the information, as I'm not, of course you don't understand. My thing is slipping down here. See, I can't even make a video properly. And that is the reality, because also you must remember, as I've said before, look, you can look, I'm sure that, I've had people, see, I could say, well, look, it's a reverse world, and it is a reverse world. Everything is upside down. That means that what is at the top should be at the bottom, and what is at the bottom should be at the top. That's my view. And you say, well, that makes sense that she would say that. It's a case of sour grapes, this sort of thing, and people will say this. And I have had people say this, not that I converse too much, apart from these videos anyway, but, that would make sense, and that would have made sense to me, only a couple of years ago. When I say a couple, I mean a couple, maybe even 12 months ago. Well, but because, that does make sense, especially when you're in a mind-controlled matrix where, successful people, success is the name of the game. That's another name of the game, but that's the delusion of the game. That is to get you to keep playing. That is also to get you to be negative too, because while you worship the demigods, or while you envy the demigods, while you would think that they are the true humans, shall we say? In other words, you believe the demigods, you believe their humanity, you believe their gifts, you believe their talents, you believe what they say, you believe everything about them, because they appear to be perfect, they appear to have the answers, they appear to represent you, or the better part of you. Well, of course they represent the better part of you, because the Matrix has taken the better part of you and given it to the demigods. This, if all real human beings that still have some logic, some rationale even, realise this, but realise it to be a reality in a Matrix game, you know, their whole way of looking at the reality would be different. And yes, there could well be a little less checkmate, but this is not the case, because there's no way that unless you are really... there's no way that while you're in the... There's very little way, apart from those that have already gone... I think that perhaps the only people that see that, apart from those that where the Matrix is exposed, because eventually I think that the Matrix will expose itself to all. But that will only be when there is complete 100% checkmate everywhere. You know, not just say where I am. Because see, you know, how I'm losing it here. I'm so sorry. These videos are convoluted. The only reason, you know, that the gods are kind of a little angry and confused today too, I would say, or the gods, because the weather outside is blowing up quite a gale. And that's actually distracting me, even though I do like to see the cleansing effect of the rain, despite the reality that I've got drenched in it and not too comfortable when you're not so young and got a few problems. But and I don't like, it's got cold too, whereas this is midsummer. But that is after, you know, the wind now will cause havoc, because we actually had like a lot of rain after many days of extreme heat. And we also needed a lot of rain because there were fires raging all around Sydney. And as usual, it's only nature that could put them out. No technology, no efforts by the by the technology of this Matrix was able to put out any of those fires. Now there again, you know, I can't say how all this works. I can't say, you know, like what made the rain come down so solid for a few days. You know, my own view is that the Matrix has full dominion over everything. It's a Matrix-controlled reality. So that includes everything. Of course, you know, human beings, because their thinking affects reality, because they are the source of all, or that's probably not quite the right way to describe it. They're the source of the Matrix because they are the source of all. And why that is, you know, I leave that up to your imagination, because, you know, I don't like to go beyond the Matrix too much, you know. And also, it's not something that I'm in contact with because I'm a limited human being. You know, I should know more about the whole, shall we say, but I don't. But I do know a little bit about the Matrix, you know, and that's only because it openly shows itself to me. So I only have to be logical, really. And also I still have to be human too. That's another thing too, because I think that if you become much like the Matrix, as a lot of humans have become like the Matrix, and that's the idea, is to make humans be like the technological Matrix, think like it, so that they throw logic and rationale out the window. You know, and they just say, oh, The Matrix is the reality. You know, I don't have to be logical about that because it's real. I don't have to think about that. I don't have to say this is not correct, this is somehow not fitting, or even that I do not desire what the Matrix is delivering, shall we say. You know, I've actually had someone say this to me a fair while ago, you know, when I pointed out something that was negative, just one little thing, and they just openly said to me, what is wrong with you? Are you not part of society? You know, are you insane to not think that society could possibly be not a benefit, and that society is not, the society, in other words, the bulk of people could get it wrong. Why are you not part of that? There's something wrong. So, you know, that was openly said to me. So I, you know, had to walk away and say, well, okay. But my attitude is, hey, no, if society is just because something is society, which is really the Matrix, you know, that's just the vast majority of people agreeing and saying we like the technological matrix. And that's their right. I was just pointing out that maybe it may not be so healthy. But if they say, hey, we don't care, we don't agree, we like it anyway, you've got it wrong, that's fair enough. You know, I accept that. That's why I say I accept checkmate. You have to. You know, because it doesn't matter. You know, I would have to add this, and this is going off into another realm that I don't normally go into. You know, I never go into religions or any of those things, as you know, because I say everything is of the Matrix, so therefore everything that is in this earth at every level is of the Matrix. So there are no, there's nothing separate. There's nothing everything that is in the Matrix is of the Matrix. Every belief, every idea, every reality is of the Matrix now, because it is because of the time, I think, because the game has already been played and, you know, checkmate in many parts. And I say in many parts because, see, I'm confusing us all again now, and myself. I apologise. I know that I'm probably not confusing most of you that are listening, but it does make for a poor video because, you know, you have to let it flow and put it together. And you know, if I'm making a video, it's kind of ridiculous that, you know, if you're making a video, you should be making it to fill in the gaps for other people. You shouldn't be making the video and saying, oh, I'm confident that the people on the other end are going to be able to fill in the gaps because they already know more than me. So it's like, why am I making the video? You know, because like I say, originally the whole idea was to make a video for real innocent human beings like I was, you know, for all my life, and just point out that there were some things that were anomalies, shall we say, in this reality, and try to get them back to thinking logically, or thinking like I would think a normal human being should think. In other words, to just bring them back to normal almost, you know, which, you know, not even to a high spiritual level, because I haven't got that myself, you know, we're limited. But even if you just see reality a little bit as it really is, even if you think it's a natural world, but you see things that you can say, hey, this is not a good thing. Well, of course, we do have this in reality. This is the funny thing. We do have, I assume, that there again, I don't know, because I can't know who is of the matrix and who isn't. In other words, you could have some people that, like we've said before, even you have pathological liars in the world. And largely, that makes up a large amount of the population because of the mindset and the personality types that I've talked about before, where being a pathological liar is part of their psychological makeup. So they have no problem, going along with the matrix and just making things up. And even going along with whether they, in other words, they'll jump onto that bandwagon. Go back to the 2 videos ago where they were asking about, the fashions and fads that people follow in various areas, whether it be fashion, food, ideas, the world, everything from the smallest thing to what you consider to be quite important earth things. They're all of the matrix, and a lot of people jump onto those ideas, those fashions, those fads at a given time, just to be seen, to be part of that. It doesn't matter, because if you're dealing with human beings that only like the limelight and only like to be seen and like to have power, they don't really care about what is the bottom line reality. That's not what they're interested in. They don't live that way. They don't think that way, because a lot of their thinking is taken over by the matrix and by their personality type. They don't, if they really knew, and I'm assuming that some of them are not aware, or not very aware. Some might be. You see, this is what I'm saying, is that it's difficult to know how many people are aware or don't care, or how far they've gone into the matrix, or whether they are total advocates of the matrix and total, have full knowledge even, shall we say. But I would say that a lot of people don't. That's my own way of looking at it, but I can't know, because I can't know how much. And there are other elements that come into play, which was the movie that I was going to do, and which I don't know if I can do that now, because I've wasted all this time rambling as usual. Now, so it's very, very, very difficult. But either way, when I'll try to get some, like I say, some semblance going here. I hope I'm not making too much noise too. Yeah, but that weather is of the matrix. The wind in particular is when the god is angry. Now, as I've said before, in a natural world, and human beings at a higher potential, and without technology, and without technology running through them and through the air and through their world, and affecting their vibration and their mind and their feelings, and therefore their thoughts, which create the reality, humans would, combined with other authentic functioning human beings, normal functioning human beings. That's how I look at it, quite simply. A spiritual human being is just really a normal functioning human being. I say spiritual because I say we're at such a limited level where everything has been closed down. Not, complete checkmate, that's right, on individual human beings, without a doubt that. But because of that, that also means checkmate on the earth and on the reality. The reality, the earth, is gone. In my way of looking at it now. That's what I would say. Whereas when I first started making a video, I didn't think that. And I thought that even when I came into the vibration way of looking at it, I felt that there was potential for humans to still raise the vibration, shall we say, and therefore take more of their reality back. But like I say, that's why I said hanging by a thread and all this sort of stuff, which, sounds fancy, I know. Look, it could well be still hanging by a thread in certain parts. I can only speak on my own limited reality. The rest is all of the matrix. If I want to know what's going on the other side of the world or other parts, I only have matrix information. Whereas what is around me, like right now, is what I can see and logically try to look at myself. But that is only a small area. Even in Sydney, where I live, I don't always go much out of Leichhardt, which is just the suburb in Sydney. And it could well be that is a very negative suburb. It could well be that is complete checkmate because of the mindset of the people that are in it. I don't know. That is definitely the case, but why and how this is accomplished is something that I'm not going to go into in this video. And also, to be honest, I can only try to use logic to figure that out. But because it's a matrix and because it is all about mind confusion and because they're one step ahead of you, they know what you're thinking, so they can present, people can say things that will mislead you to where you will think that person is maybe less of the matrix or more of the matrix, what the means are, why the person is of the matrix. There could be different means to this. I'm just losing it here, I have to admit. I'm losing the plot here, I have to say this. That means I don't know what I'm talking about, and because you see, I can't go into details about things that I don't fully understand. I believe they exist. I know some of them. For me, it's a reality, but I can't show it on a video. And it's my reality, you see. That's why I say. But either way, the point that I was going to say, though, when I say that it's checkmate here, right? If it's checkmate here, it may not be checkmate where you are. So I'm just going to say that because I don't want to pour cold water over the entire earth. But I will say that humans are connected to, so it's hard to know if you're getting the vibe from others that are telling you this, or whether it is just your environment. I know for a reality that it's my environment, but I don't know. Well, look, okay, so I'm going to try to be falsely uplifting here, but I'm still going to do it. I'm going to pretend that I know more and that I'm a spiritual human being, okay? I think this is important because maybe some of you are. Maybe some of you are at a better understanding and at a normal human level. You're a spiritual human being. You may still be limited, but you may be less limited than myself. It may be enough. This is why I said hanging by a thread, because I do believe so strongly in the human being now, in that natural life force. There's nothing comparable to it in any possible way, but it has been suppressed in this reality like I say, to the level of an ant. But it is no reflection on the human being that they're defeated, because like I say, if the odds are completely against you, 100%, like it would be impossible to defeat the checkmate properly. I think this is because of the technology and the timing myself. That's just a speculation. I think the game has been played to the last, and like myself, the awareness of this reality has come too late for me. So, and also the others that are around me, the reality that's around me, they are never going to, become aware of the reality. They don't want to. They don't choose to. Some of them don't even have that human ability to do it. Because once you throw your humanity right completely out the window, and all logic out the window, everything out the window, it's just not possible for you then to even realise the reality, no matter what. You have to want to, or you have to see things that you don't agree with you. You have to, and you have to get a little bit beyond the survival mode of thinking too, I would say. I was in survival mode most of my life. In fact, I openly used to say it. I used to actually say, I'm just surviving. And I used to be proud of just surviving, because I felt that I was at odds with myself. My main battle in my life was always with myself. I had no idea that I was also battling a duality reality where the God entity and 3/4 of what is in this reality, 3/4 of people in this reality, everything from your demigods, that they're the ones that we worship and idolise, the main players in the reality, shall we say, anyone who's anyone, if you want to put it correctly, through to, the least person. But that which is most suppressed is of the most high, whereas that which is the most exalted is of the lowest denominator, because we live in a reverse world reality. And because those that are of the highest calibre are the most suppressed, they are unaware that as a human being they are of the Most High. It's very difficult for people who are in the most diabolically suppressed circumstances to say, hey, I am the highest level spiritual human being. They're not going to say, oh, the demigod should be, sitting in the gutter. They're not going to say, hey, I have no physical benefits of the matrix, so therefore I am the most superior being. That's for your gurus and your philosophers of the matrix. They have all the comforts and luxuries, but they'll openly tell you to go back to nature and to be simple and to live simply. Just live in simple luxury is what they really should say, because if you've got a real lot of money and a real lot of and also it's easy to pretend to be simple and natural if you know that the matrix is protecting you. It's not the same as a real, genuine, homeless person that feels the threat of the matrix and knows that they could starve. It's one thing to say, oh, I eat simply and I can choose healthy in what I eat. But they're not, the gurus of the matrix, the philosophers, the demigods of the matrix, they're not frightened that they won't be able to get food. That they won't be able to have clothes, that they won't be able to have just normal facilities. They're not throwing it all away and taking on the matrix. Even if they choose to live in a hut, they're still safe because the matrix will protect them, whereas a real human being living in a hut will not be protected. That hut will not be safe. That tent will not be safe. So I don't care, I don't care how much they want to present themselves as, whatever they present themselves as. They are not under threat from the matrix, because if you are of the matrix protects you because you're a demigod of the matrix. Even if you're not in the public domain or in the public arena. In other words, you're not prominent to where most people know who you are, or at least a large amount. If you are working against a human being, then you are of the matrix. It's just that, as I said before, many are not aware of this. Many take down individual human beings at an individual level and have no idea that they are working for the matrix, and have no idea they're operating for the matrix, no idea they're doing the matrix, they're part of the matrix chess game. And most of them, because they're very much into a certain personality type, some of them almost don't care, even if they half knew. But they probably don't. And if they knew they were a pawn in the matrix God entity's game, some of them might turn the game around, shall we say, a bit. But they're not at that level. And you can't blame them for not being at that level. At some point they will become aware, because eventually all will probably come to light. The game will be exposed completely at some point. But, it's important that it was shown to me before now, and it's the same for other people. The later it's left, then the game, it's already checkmate, as I say. So then it doesn't matter. Because if you've got, if you incorporate technology into your reality, if you allow technology into your world, into your home, on a majority scale, on a community scale, on a society scale, is that the words? I don't know. In other words, once it gets past, where it's, like I say, it's a technological grid Earth that we live in. And I don't know what I'm talking about here. I wouldn't even know what a grid is, but I simply mean that it's like a closed-in domain that is completely covered in technology. I've said this before. It's everywhere. You can't get out. Nothing can get in. Will your system be all right when you dream of home tonight? There is no message. We're receiving. Let me know, is your heart still beating? I don't know what that song means, but all I can say is I'm not receiving any messages. Maybe I'm meant to be receiving messages. I'm cut off. I'm in a matrix. Let me know, is your heart still beating? Let them know, is my heart still beating? Because look, it's, in other words, the heart's still beating? Is the spirit still there? Has it been consumed and taken from us? Do you even have a choice? Because if like I say, if it's checkmate, if the technology is swamping you, if even your own kind is of the matrix and for technology, you see, it's game over, as they say. And I don't like to say that because I don't like to be part of the matrix where I say, game over, this, that, because even that is part of it. It's like we have all this ridiculous, in my opinion, way of looking at things, ridiculous way of talking, ridiculous that it's okay to be in this situation. We've just gone away from reality. We think that we've gone into being logical and into technology. We haven't. We've gone away from reality. We're out of touch with ourselves. We're out of touch with anything that is real. We're living in a delusion world. We're living in everything around us is just make-believe. It's just what the Matrix wants you to think, what the Matrix wants you to believe, what the Matrix wants you to see. Even I cannot be sure of that myself. For all I know, so much could, even if you want to look at it another way, it could well be that I'm swamped by the mind control of the Matrix. In other words, it could well be that because even though I know it's a matrix, I still feel it, I still see it, so I still believe it in a way. I'm still affected by it. Because I'm a human being and I'm frequency and vibration, the plane going over right now, if it's really loud and noisy, that vibration affects me. And, whether this should be or not is another thing. But it's one thing me saying it's the matrix. But that vibration is still getting to me. The illusion of the matrix, is extremely hard if it's all around and close up to ignore. I would say if it was a little, it would be possible. Even then, as a human being, we get distressed. I was just going to say that, that if there was any kind of light at the end of the tunnel, shall we say, or dark at the end of the tunnel, because light is dark, dark is light, I wouldn't know. I'm just being fancy here, but like what appears to be light and a good thing probably isn't in the matrix. It will impress. But I think that like I say, there's two ways of looking at this, or three ways if you like, and I try to put it out here and you can think of it for yourself. You probably already have. Look, like if for instance, right, sorry about that. If, for instance, I hope that I'm not making a noise because I realise that even just putting my hands on this bit of plastic here makes a crumply noise on the videos, and I had no idea that would be the case. You see, that's the matrix multiplying the sound. You'd say, well, that's normal. You should know that that's part of technology. Of course it's part of technology. I just don't agree with it. I'm not saying it's fairyland. It's a reality, but it's a reality that we're not aware of. That's like everything in the matrix. See, I wasn't aware of that. If I became aware of it, then it becomes real. I'm saying that we're just not really, I'm not aware of most of what is actually real because I don't know all the ins and outs of the matrix. I don't understand all the technology. It probably wouldn't matter because I would still not be able to push it away too well. Not now that it's all consuming and all encompassing. and all around to such an extent. If it was a bit further away, yes, I would say. That's why I say this is the end of the game, shall we say. You know, the end of the game. Because once, you know, it's a bit like if you're surrounded, like if you wanted to go back to an old movie or something where, the enemy is all around and there's only one of you and you've got, 1,000 around you. But, but do remember that video that I did way back on a movie called Lost Patrol, which was in the 30s, strangely enough, and I wouldn't expect any of you to watch or endure it because it would probably be too old-fashioned for you. But in that movie, as I've said before, the Lost Patrol got defeated. In other words, a small handful of, were they soldiers or a patrol anyway, okay, and they were out in the desert, which is not the best place, were not defeated by the numbers of the enemy or the Arabs or whatever the tribes were that were around them in the desert. They were defeated by the illusion of numbers in that movie. That's interesting. Because they actually started out, the Lost Patrol, even though it was only a small patrol, they actually had, at the end of the movie, when the final fellow was left and realised that he'd unnecessarily lost all his patrol, because in reality the enemy or the tribes that were around him were fewer in number than them, but they picked him off one by one. That's how the Matrix works. It picks off human beings one by one with the mind control, with the Matrix, and with total elimination of the human spirit, and sometimes even of the human body. Usually both, depending on who, the circumstances, and whatever. And it's one by one. That's interesting. Maybe the Matrix is more deceptive than what we realise. Maybe the Matrix is not as all-powerful, but it has become all-powerful because of its means. Because even though it has the numbers, as I said before, the human being has more, is the source. So theoretically, if you're the source, it should be the other way around. Instead of the Matrix circling the human being and controlling them, it should be the human being controlling the Matrix. But this is not the case. And this is because of mind control, mind influence by the demigods, mind infiltration in every way. And then if you bring in technology, which is physical influence, physical control, physical power, then you have the checkmate. I don't know if I put that right, and I know I've left out many things because I don't understand all the workings of the Matrix. I don't understand all the technology. I don't understand every bit of mind control even. I see what I see. That's enough for me. What I see is massive. But, there's more. But you only have to see a little bit sometimes, and then, as I say, you'll see more. But most people refuse to open up their way of thinking to a little bit. And I don't blame them because, it's not that, it's, as you can imagine, it's not enjoyable to sit here and say that it's checkmate. It's not enjoyable to say that you're a human being that's suppressed at physical, psychological, and emotional level. And spiritual level, Because if you get suppressed at all those levels, if you get suppressed physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, then as a human being, your spirit is right down. If you want to look at it, I look at that logically. To me, the spirit is logic. To me, the spirit is real. It's what a human being is. It's their bottom line essence, if you want to look at it that way. And if all those things get pushed down, then the spirit will be really battling to hold on to any sort of truth or to any sort of you will feel that the matrix has the complete upper hand, which it does, and so therefore it will seem impossible odds or even unrealistic to oppose it, even, shall we say, or to think that there's any possibility of hanging on in this reality that way. Now, so it really comes, that's why I say it's checkmate, and it's really the end of the game, because it really, we're human beings at such a level and such, you're left with very little. But either way, could I just say, because I don't want to be all doom and gloom, just because it's doom and gloom and I feel it and I see that reality. This is in Sydney, Australia, okay? In Leichhardt. Maybe they converge, the matrix converges on different areas at different times. Like I say, that's the game. And it does pick off people one by one. Like that movie. You must be part of the matrix. If you don't want to be part of the matrix, or you can't be part of the matrix. See, to my way of looking at it, me personally, it's not that I don't want to be part of the matrix. I do. I just can't be. And that's because I'm a human being. That's really what it comes down to. I think that's what I would now say logically, because in my own mind, I'm like, everything in me is like, hey, it's everyone else seems to be more comfortable. Now, of course, I don't know even this reality. I wouldn't know who or what. Everyone is hit a different way in the reality. Each person will be the matrix will operate differently for each person according to how much spirit they have left, how much they want in the world, how much they're prepared to give up, or how much they need. It's very hard to explain. In other words, like, dare I say, it's a bit like some past religious, biblical type things. And I don't go into those things, as you know, a great deal. I don't. But I will pick, as I've said before, from any story, from any book. I don't care if it's religious or if it's not, if it's fairy tale, if it's fiction, or if it's supposedly fact, or if it's supposedly a non-fiction book or writing or autobiography or movie or documentary, whatever. I don't care. I'll pick from anything. I'll pick from a cartoon. I'll pick from, and I've done that, I use the fairy tale. Because to me, it's all part of the reality, and I just put it together to make up my reality. If you don't agree with my reality, that's fair enough. But also, my reality would be different to yours. So it's not a question of agreeing with my reality 100%. It's a question of agreeing with the premises, the basic bottom line of the spiritual human being, a human being, versus a matrix-type earth. That's how I would put it, and I don't know if I put that well. And even that reality I do not fully understand, because, there could be different ways of looking at that. I might discuss that if I'm still making videos in another one, but I would be purely speculating because I'm not behind the scenes. I'm not the I'm not the person behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz that knows how everything works. I'm not the controller of the Matrix. I'm not even in contact with the demigods or the God. And I'm certainly not in contact with, you know, there is no message we're receiving. So I'm not getting anything from any other source either. And this is the problem for human beings, is that if you think there's something wrong, if you're at a low spiritual level, you're only getting negative from the Matrix, and you're certainly not, your heart is definitely not beating in this reality. You're not receiving. Yeah, let me know. There is no message we're receiving. We're not receiving anything. I'm not receiving anything. So it's purely logically going against or opposing or not liking the reality, as opposed to, as it should be, to where you should know what the whole scenario really is, and to where you should be getting something positive from another source even, perhaps, or at least positive from the other human beings that you would naturally be connected to if we were not in this artificially controlled environment or domain that is the Earth Matrix, if you want to look at it that way. Because, but also I would say that yes, if, like for instance, if it's checkmate in Sydney, in other words, the Matrix has won that chess game more or less. That really, you could look at it another way, and I just say this, that would mean that if I've lost my kind of potential to raise the frequency, my own personal frequency here, which is definitely the case, and if I can't repel the negative technological intrusions into my reality, shall we say. I'm putting it very fancy here. I could be blunt, but I try to be a little bit more intellectual if I possibly can, because I'm making a video. It's funny, the rain's pouring out there, which appears to be so natural, and it's almost cleansing. And yet I can feel the technology coming through the window at odds with the natural environment. That's assuming that, there again, I'll leave that up to you to take it. How much is for real? How much is natural? Look, I come from a certain standpoint, as you know, but I could be wrong, but I'm not wrong, I don't think, and I will not budge from that. That you're still a human being, regardless of the environment, and regardless of what you are meant to be connected to or not, or it's a game. But my own way of looking at it is somewhere, I can't explain it, because, you'd have to, maybe look at some of the movies, because they might offer some insight. This is my vehicle in this reality. And the vehicle is bombarded with technology and suppressed to the lowest level. So my spiritual connections to everything is lost. Game over. Checkmate. But there's still other areas. Now, so I'm saying that I make this video for other people, the few that are listening. Now, for you, it may not be checkmate for you. And if you are more spiritual and are able to access more power, other areas could still be hanging by a thread. So as a human being, you could still manipulate that reality. And if you can manipulate it and then you are connected to another human being in another area that is able to do the same thing, then you're changing the Earth matrix in some areas. And because the human being is incomparable to the technological beings of the matrix, they have no power except the technology they use and are given. They have no power in any spiritual way. They are players, and they are the vast minions of the God entity, this matrix reality. They can only, their power is only in their astronomical numbers. Their unbelievable astronomical numbers against individual spiritual human beings. They are not comparable individually to the human being. The human being, and I just say this, they're not, they would be swatted like flies. They would fall down and be gone and reduced to what they are, which is really dust and nothing anyway. If even a few human beings were at remotely high potential, even a human being the joint human beings combined, even at low level, the checkmate would be the other way around. But, oh dear, these videos are very tense. I'm absolutely dripping with sweat, and yet it is actually cool today, and there is gale force winds blowing. I think they said it was. So that is, that's tension, because a human being shouldn't be under that tension. I'm under that tension just making a video even though I don't feel that I am making the video to any that are not of the same thinking as myself. So it should be friendly, I should be relaxed and comfortable. But I'm not, because because I'm talking about a negative matrix. I'm talking about a situation. It's a situation. It's not a situation. It's oh, sorry about that. It's a situation that it's not a situation. It's a lot more than a situation. You can't use words to actually say how important it is, because it's see, my personal way of looking at it, and I'm trying to be as unnaturally intimate as what I am uncomfortable being. That's why, it's difficult at a physical and even at a thinking level. But the situation is that I might have to go in a second. The situation is, like I say, I think that this is just myself, okay? And I can only make the videos from my own limited environment and, you know, the way I see it and feel it. And the feeling is a negative for me. That, like I say, that human feeling, that emotion that is part of the creative process of reality, you know, is also just going to be used against real human beings at the present time. And has always been, I would think anyway. You know, so everything that is positive about a human being in this negative matrix is basically used against the human being. It's like using someone's gifts for a purpose that you as a human being would not agree to and would not wish and would not want. So my own personal view is that, you know, if I wasn't making a video now, I would be better off. If I wasn't thinking anything at all, I was not creating at all. Because the human being just naturally creates by their thinking, because the human being just thinks, you know, and feels, because that's just what a human being is. So you can't stop your vibration. You can't, you know, you have to have a... So I don't know what I'm talking about here because I haven't got control of it. And, you know, like, you should be able to consciously control all these things. You should be able to consciously control your environment, your vibration, your frequency, your thinking, your feelings. These should not be just... We shouldn't just be reacting to the matrix, and that's essentially what is our reality. I am not a thinking, real human being. I'm just a matrix reactor. This is not how a human being is meant to be. This is why I say we're in the wrong environment. Because everything that I would think does not become a reality, because I'm instead just reacting to the matrix. Because the matrix now has full dominion over the environment, full dominion over everyone and everything that is around a human being. Yes, the world revolves around a human being, a normal, natural human being. Everything does revolve around them because they are the creator source. They're the only life force. But they also are in the position of now, yes, the world revolves around me and around my body, my human body, but it is a matrix world that is revolving around. It is a matrix world that has taken over the natural world, so therefore, and over the natural human beings. So therefore, you know, it is technology. It is a tech matrix that is revolving around me, as opposed to, you know, a natural world. And you might say, well, you talk rubbish because, you know, you say that there is some things that appear to be natural. Yes, there are some things that appear to be natural. And even if they were completely natural, that doesn't matter, because if you have mind, if you have control of a natural human being's mind or a natural living being's mind, that is no longer a living, natural, spiritual life force, I don't think. Because it is now a technologically controlled life force. You know, because the technology is all around. The technology has infiltrated the physical. Even the physical can be controlled by technology, 100%. You know, if you get sick, your body is being controlled by an illness. Where does the illness come from? But the mind control, because the mind controls the body so much. And even science, I think, has actually told us this, haven't they? Don't they say the mind? I think someone said this to me when I was down at the doctor a few years ago, when I was upset about physical conditions. They're like, I'm like, will an X-ray cause an injury to my body? Don't worry, because the mind controls the body. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that actually is true. But, if you haven't got control over your mind, then you are not going to be able to counter the technology, And I don't know what I'm talking about. And I think that I had better fold up. And yes, I will fold up. I think that video on the movie The Innocents is also out the window today, because The Matrix grabbed me mentally again. And I don't quite know why, and I know I'm repeating myself to the few that listen, because they already know this. So it's kind of like, But that's what I'm saying. There's a saying, I think, between a rock and a hard place, or between the devil and the deep blue sea, or between I'll have to think of the other one. I should think, but either way, in no man's land. Yeah, I'm in no man's land, because you, even when you're making the video, you're like, oh, if I was saying the same stuff to what I would consider to be a normal human being, the few that are still around, they're so innocent. And that's the title of the movie I was going to do, The Innocents. Interesting, and I will get to it, I think. If I don't, it doesn't matter. You'll have to get on the best way you can, as they say. I think that was a song too, The dream is over. What more can I say? And so, dear friends, you'll just have to carry on. The dream is over. Well, that was an interesting song. I don't know why I brought that up right now, but it essentially means that, my dream could be over. So in other words, if I don't contact people, or if I leave the matrix or whatever, then other people have to carry on. And so, dear friends, you just have to carry on. And actually, that may or may not be a bad thing, in the sense that if you look at it as a game, as it is, and I don't like to look at reality as a game. I don't like any part of this, that. I'm a simple, innocent person making videos that's become aware of a nightmare type of reality, in a way, at least from my own perspective. As I said before, I can only speak from my own viewpoint on my own environment, my own reality. So if yours is different and you're in a different scenario and you are able to access other real human beings, or even if you are, shall I say, a more clean human being. By that I mean, and I'm big on cleanliness because I've got OCD, but I'm surrounded by filth. And my body is infiltrated by filth, internally and externally. And my mind is made into filth by anger and animosity and negativity around me. But if you are able to get past that, if you are able to keep your where's the clean thing going? I was on it there. If you are able to keep a clean body and a clean mind, in an essentially dirty, negative environment, maybe your environment is not as dirty as mine. Maybe your mind is not as dirty. Maybe your body is not as dirty. Maybe your environment's not as dirty. I don't know. I can't say. I assume that most of this is the entire Earth matrix now, to some extent. So you only have a little old human being in it, trying to keep their mind and their body clean. And at an emotional level, you lose heart, so therefore you let the other things slip. It's a catch-22. It's a circle. You're getting on that hamster wheel. You can't get off. It goes. I can't quite explain it. But what I'm trying to say is one thing often defeats the other. Now, if you're feeling bad and depressed, you don't look after yourself. If you're angry, the environment makes you angry. If you think you haven't got any friends, if you think you've got enemies all around, if you think everyone is hateful, if you think everything is negative, if you think all these things and they become your reality, and indeed they may even be, because not everyone is friendly, not everyone is on your side. People, negative people can become very negative to other people. You hate yourself, you hate others. I think I've made that point, and it's a thin line, and I've lost the plot again as usual. It varies with each person. Some people can hate the world, hate other people, hate themselves, but they still might, like myself, look out and say, oh, the poor little bird doesn't do me any harm. He just flies around. I don't hate him. So you're not completely at the matrix, but you're pretty far gone, because you've let all the others defeat you and convince you, or you've let the matrix convince you that everything else is negative. And of course, it may well be so too, because the matrix may have taken over the minds. We have the psychopaths, which make up the vast majority now. So that's a negative human being that is possessed by negative thinking, possessed by negative feelings about themselves and about the world. They feel wronged. They feel angry. They feel rejected. They feel that everything is against them. They feel that that they should have more. They don't understand. And the more that happens, the more they become self-centered, and then that becomes a catch-22, because then they don't get anything good from even positive people. I've seen negative human beings, psychopathic types, that can have positive human beings around them that would love and help those same people. But they can't be helped because that human being themselves is so full of their own negativity. They actually only then see that person as a bit of a light and try to extinguish their light, instead of saying, hey, that person will help me. That person might be able to help me get back my light. That person might be able to make me feel positive again. They don't get it. They've gone too far in the direction of the matrix. That's what happens with the psychopath. They're often not surrounded by as much negativity as what they think. Of course, they're in a negative matrix, so yes, there's going to be at least, 90% probably around them that is genuinely against them, negative. But they might still have more friends than me. They might still have more positive, real human beings that could theoretically help them, and also be a joint, and should be a joint collaboration, to where they have a positive vibration and frequency that can then infiltrate and affect more of what's around them, to where they then make a better environment. But instead they're of the Matrix, so they don't see that. They're too busy comparing themselves to the Matrix God entity and his demigods, or mainly to the demigods, because a lot of people are not aware of the actual Matrix God, but they're certainly aware of the demigods, and they compare to that. They belittle the real human beings. They don't know that the demigods are not the real human beings. They don't know that the real human beings are the source and the real living force of everything. They're the only thing that counts, the only thing that matters. The Matrix gods are merely pretenders. They're the great pretenders. Now that was a song too, The Great Pretender. Yes, I'm the great pretender. If I was a Matrix god, I would be sitting here like I'm doing now, spewing all my philosophy and words of wisdom. I'd probably be a bit more glamorous, but maybe not, because they do like to cover all areas now, because the Matrix is extremely genius level clever, you know. So I could be here sitting, spewing all my philosophy and all the stuff that I'm doing, and I could be the great pretender. I could be a demigod of the Matrix. Obviously, I'm not a demigod of the Matrix because I'm not a demigod. I'm not one of your elite, show business people, or, anything that is in the technology. I'm at the low level, technological level, because I'm using a mobile phone making a video. But, but as a human being, because the Matrix knows that the human being is really the source and the power of the Matrix, all levels are covered. It's just that most people buy into the demigods of the Matrix, as I did, and still find tempting, I might add. So they're never. So that's why human beings never actually combine or unite, or are in any sort of joint harmony with one another to affect the reality and to make their world the world they really want, to where they are the demigods of the Matrix instead of the false demigods that we do have of the Matrix. I don't think I put that well. I don't think I'm putting these things right. You see, most real human beings, even at the lower levels of society, or the Matrix, or the Earth, whatever you like, only see the demigods of the Matrix. The real human beings that may be around these people, that have the real power, the real ability to change the reality, the frequency, the vibration, to affect the reality, to make it positive. They belittle them. They don't realise, especially if they're psychopathic, because the psychopathic personality is going to worship the demigods, because the psychopathic personality is a dominant type of personality. They like the material world. They admire, the rich and the famous, no doubt, as we all have. But they particularly would worship that and see that as the ultimate way of living, because they themselves are very much about dominating and being seen and having influence over others, having power, which is what the demigods do. Demigods have no real power, but they do have extreme power of influence. That is their ability. They have no real gifts. They have no real life. They have no real genius. None of them. They have no real anything. They are programmed demigods of the Matrix that we follow, we watch, we believe, we think are real human beings. These are not. They are not. They are superficial, idols that we follow and worship and are greatly influenced by. Their power is the power of influence, not vibration, not frequency. But it is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than the real human being's power of just being a human being by being a natural positive vibration or frequency source. I don't think I put that right. I guess I'm not a demigod because I don't think they bungle it up anywhere near as bad as me. They might bungle it up a little bit to present themselves as being at the human level, because the demigods must present themselves as being human in the sense that they have to get a human on board. So they have to be emotional, they have to do the human things. But they usually do it in a better way. They're basically, the demigods are actors, literally. In fact, they are your actors. They make your movies and, your famous people, etc. And they are just as good acting on the screen as off the screen, as making all the things they do. They are your creative people, but they're actors because although they are able to present a very good image, a very good human connection, they are representatives of the God entity, nothing more. But they use everything that is human to convince the human to follow them, worship them, and believe in them, and trust them. And that is okay if you're aware of what this really is. If you also follow, believe, and worship in the God entity, this is fine. If you understand that the demigods are representations of their God, that they believe in and follow and worship, and that they are merely like, programmed preachers of their God entity, programmed philosophers of their God entity, programmed humans of their God entity, in the sense that their bottom line core thing is to keep a human being playing in the matrix and believing in the matrix ideas, the matrix philosophies, the matrix ideologies, the matrix reality, to make it real. They want you to change your reality to the reality of them and their God entity. And if you do agree to this, and if you believe in it, if you believe in technology, if you believe in their ideas, if you believe in how humans should think and be, if you think you should throw out past traditions, if you think you should throw out past beliefs, if you think you should build things differently, this is okay then. You have chosen to be one of the matrix and the God entity and its demigods and all the minions, because this is now the reality largely anyway. All I've always said in my videos is I do not think this is a benefit. I think this is making a human being less. I think that why would you throw away being the true life source and the true creator in preference to being a technological demigod person, human, or whatever. I didn't put that right. Forget that last bit. I'm trying to be too fancy here. No, you're throwing away, as I've said before, a human being has it all. There's nothing that a human being could ever gain from an outside source that isn't in them, because they already have they are the creator source. You can't go any bigger than that. You can't go any better than that. But if you think but because we have been suppressed so much and limited to such a level, of course it would be easy for me to say, hey, the matrix appears to be better. The matrix will give me more, and it will too. And you may not, while you're in this matrix now, you probably won't be able to get back to any decent level of being a human being. So you are hanging by a thread on spirit only, really, on just saying, hey, I know I can't get, like myself, I say, I know I can't get back to any high level. I know I can't be a spiritual human being, but I still don't want to be of the matrix, of the technology. That I see as a total negative. That is total death. Even as a limited cockroach human being, I still have a little bit of life. Not much, because the matrix, yes, it's checkmate. Most people say, hey, we'll go with the technology, we'll go with the demigods, we'll go with the, with the technology, we'll go with that. They'll say, hey, that's not death, that's life, because that will offer us more, that gives us more comforts, we can breathe a bit. So why would we want to listen to you? You're hardly breathing. That's right. Let me know, is your heart still beating? It's just barely beating. And it's not beating naturally. It's not beating at a flowing, comfortable, relaxed, peaceful level, shall we say. I can't even use the words, and I'm frustrated because that's right, the matrix gets you. It's an unnatural world. I just can't emphasize that enough. It is an unnatural world. Human beings have decided to be unnatural, unspiritual, or a spirituality that is not conducive to them ever being what they are meant to be. Yes, you could have, as I say, animals on this earth. You could have an animal. And in this reality, you could probably be any animal you want to be. You know, you can change things. Technology can manipulate and change and affect reality just as much as the spiritual human being can. They're two opposing forces, if you want to look at it that way. I've said this before. You can't have nature and technology. They're in opposition. They always will be. They always have been. They can never, ever cooperate. One will always annihilate the other. You just have to make a choice as to which you want. But most human beings, I know from the ones around me, they're you know, it's frustrating to realise how silly human beings can be, that will speak in defence of nature and yet will think that it's okay to surround that nature in technology. To me, that's just the insanity of this world, the stupidity of it, and it really is, because there's no common sense to it, there's no logic to it. That's what I say, logic out the window. You know, it's not even funny. It's so illogical. And yet that's what people think. You know, you see them talking about the natural world. We must do this, we must do that. We'll do it with technology. That'll solve the problem. You know, we'll save a natural world by technology. We'll swamp it in technology, but we'll be against the natural human beings too. We don't want them because they cause all the problems, you know. But our technology can save it all. You can't save what is not natural, and you also can't save, that's assuming that you realise this too. You must remember that all is not what it seems, so all is not natural. You know, some things may be, But if you presume everything all is, that is probably not true. And if it ever was, I'm sure that it's mutated now into a form of technology anyway. Like I say, I don't think you can even have, like my body, I've said this before, I don't think that you can have a human body that if it's not in a natural environment, like you can do some things wrong to the human body and it will compensate. I know because I've done this all my life. I've never been particularly, fanatical, but you're able to do that. You're able to actually, the human body can renew itself quite well against all obstacles. But it gets past a tipping point, as they say, and that's like this world. That's why I say it's checkmate, because it gets past a tipping point. You can throw a lot at a very strong, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually advanced human being even. Hey, look, I'm just going to be blunt here and say, look, if you really think about it, and I have to go into mythology here. I say mythology because I never go along the lines that anything that I pick out of a fairy tale, or even if it's out of a fiction or a non-fiction book, you'll never hear me saying that this is 100% fact. To me, it's all fiction, but I choose to incorporate all fiction into my own reality. I use anything from any source into my own reality and say, hey, I'm going to say that's a possibility. In my own mind, I probably think it's a reality, but I'm saying that to anyone that's listening, it's a possibility. As you would agree with anything. Anything could be a possibility. Some people might say, well, it's only a 5% possibility, but yes, it's a possibility, but I choose to say it's 95, so therefore I don't incorporate it into my reality. All I do is say I incorporate it all in. And the Matrix just sidetracked me there, because whereas before I was slightly less open, now the door has been opened and it's banging upstairs and the wind is blowing, so I better get back on track here. And this thing is slipping down here, and my body is aching, and yeah, see, the body can be taken very much. See, and if your body hurts and if your body is failing, that is not a frequency raiser, as I've said before. So all these things are designed to, to keep you playing in the matrix, particularly in the physical. Oh dear. And I lost my train of thought there. So, I lost that about the, if you had everything going for you even. Oh yes, okay, it comes back to me now to finish up because I'll have to. There probably, let's suppose that there was, just wait for that, just wait for the matrix to calm down. And actually it's not, it's really letting loose a little bit out there. But that matrix wind can only do so much. It's not going to kill me, but it could affect some of the natural things a bit, unfortunately. But hopefully their little spirits will rise a bit better than mine. Maybe some of the birds out there have got better spirit than me because they'll need it today. It's funny because they were so happy yesterday after all the rain, completely drenched in the park just down here. And, a few little birds were flapping around and all the water everywhere because a few days before it was like a drought almost, to where some of the birds had their mouths hanging open. And they were as happy as Larry. It was, but today the wind has come up to where some of them will no doubt probably be, the younger ones might well be blown out of the trees in this sort of weather. So they also, are in a battle, because the Matrix game is also waged against smaller natural life forces, and they are not anywhere near in the vicinity or the capacity for manipulation of their environment as the human being. In fact, the human being is meant to manipulate by positive thinking and keep their environment more peaceful, shall we say. But having said that, in this reality, the Matrix will deal with that in a practical way. That is not actually the way that this reality is meant to work. It's not meant to be human physical intervention of nature, in my opinion. Okay, it's my opinion, it's my way of looking at it. It wasn't always my way of looking at it. No, I was all for intervention only a few years ago. I thought, of course, I still... Look, if it's a positive intervention on an individual basis, I think it is valid. I've said this before, and I'm going to rock the matrix here for a second, so if the video doesn't get through, that's okay. But, I've never had any time for people that make documentaries on wildlife and will show situations, because I noticed it years ago, maybe the Matrix didn't like this, where they will be openly showing how some species are declining and possibly on the verge of extinction. But the filmers, people who film these videos, never intervene. They always say, we're here to bring to light these situations, which makes them, the demigods of the Matrix. But they never ever would throw a piece of meat to a possibly extinct polar bear that is about to hibernate. So it only needs a piece of meat to hibernate for months and months to survive, to carry on that species. No, they wouldn't do that. They'll film the polar bear dying and say, this is the tragedy and we are here to bring to light this. And yet they would probably eat more meat for their own dinner that night. These are the demigods of the Matrix. Now, I just said intervention, usually at a human level, is not advisable. No, but see, at an individual level, if you are genuine and you just want to throw temporary food to an animal to help it through a difficult time, I am not against that at all, but I am against total takeover of the environment, because nature will right itself, and nature has a right to be free. Natural human beings, no, they don't. They're in a matrix and we don't. That is not our right, because we have decided to be part of a matrix. We are not like a free bird that flies around. Yes, we believe in the matrix. We believe in combining and being part of a society. The only ones who aren't part of a society are real spiritual human beings, I would say. They might be part of it, they might be controlled by it, but mentally they don't abide with it. Their frequency does not really align with it. Their thinking doesn't align with it. But they might be forced out of necessity to live in that environment and to agree with it and whatever. But they never mentally really agree with it, I wouldn't think. I think I've lost my train of thought here too. But but I was just going to say, in the past there has been a human being that was physically, mentally, psychologically and spiritually at the highest level, or at a high level. At the highest level, but I don't know what that is, and I don't know the past, but I think that everything is a possibility and everything could be true. So maybe in the past there was a human being that came into this reality and was at the highest levels in all human aspects, because the human being is the main life force in any reality. That's just my view. But it's meant to be a much higher life force, even if you wanted to say, oh, there could be something else that's higher or this or that. You know, that's fair enough. But when you say everything else higher, I would assume that if human beings are a creative force, that they would be in alliance with something else that is similar, or that is, you know, that might, it's a bit like myself, like I'm a spiritual human being at the lowest level, so there could be other human beings that are at a higher spiritual level. So I'm in alliance with them, even though I'm disconnected from them, even though, you know, my system is not all right. Will your system be all right when you dream of home tonight? Let me know, is your heart still beating? No, my system is not all right. And I do not get any message, you know, from anywhere. I'm disconnected from other, you know, higher spiritual life forces, much less anything outside of a matrix, you know. So, and I lost the lines of that song there too. I'm terribly sorry. You know, this is how it is, you know. And I only use these songs and these things as part of making some sort of point. And I don't even know if I'm making the point, to be honest, or making it well. I'm certainly not making it well. There is no message we're receiving. We're not receiving any message. I'm not receiving any message. If there are some that do. Now, but either way, I've gone off the track. If there is some that are, then like I say, because of the numbers and because you're in a matrix and because of the situation, you really would have to be able to connect, to have any sort of influence on the reality. Because the influence of the matrix god and the demigods and the vast majority of people, regardless of what their personality types are, regardless of how technological or not they have become, regardless of whether they use technology for their power or not, doesn't matter. Regardless of, you know, if they're a human being but they're taken over by negative thoughts, by mind parasites or possession. Possession is the same as the mind parasites coming in and putting negative thoughts into your head, or thoughts that are not your own, or thoughts, or saying and doing things that you wouldn't do if you were at your normal human level. You know, I do this myself. You get really angry if the matrix has enough effect on you. Like I say, you can do things that you would absolutely think are terrible in a normal state. But we get further away from our normal state, and after a while we think that that is human nature. It's not human nature at all. It is Archon technological nature that has infiltrated our reality. We're living in it, and it infiltrates our mind. This business of, I often think now, and I've always said this too, human beings are not perfect. Of course they're not perfect because we're at a low spiritual level. Human nature, this business of human nature, it's human nature to do a lot of wrong things. Well, of course it is, because we are affected by the artificial technological world. Because we're affected by this technological matrix that controls everything. If we weren't, human nature would not be to where, oh yes, I just did things that I really didn't want to do. I did something negative. I lost control of myself. That is the matrix. That's not human nature, but we think it's human nature because we've now become of the matrix. We think human nature is normal. We think it is normal human nature to be in this conflict. And of course it is in this reality, to be in this continual battle of what is right and wrong, or what is good and bad. That's part of the game. But, if we weren't in a technological matrix, we'd be a lot more clear thinking, and we'd just automatically know what is a benefit to us or what isn't, and what is controlling us and what isn't, and what is... we just know those things. And we wouldn't be emotionally controlled to where we would be frustrated and get negative and angry, to where we do things that are not really part of our nature, that are not really human nature. That's really archon nature. We think that human nature is archon nature, technological nature of the matrix. You follow what I'm saying? Or unnatural nature. We're meant to be natural human nature, whereas we're really unnatural human nature because we're of the matrix. We don't have any control over that. Now, if your mind controlled by the matrix, if you believe the matrix, you will get angry by the matrix messages, you will get angry by the matrix technology, mind parasites coming in, whether it be with their technology through influence or whether it be direct, able to directly tell you things in your thoughts. Because if you get angry and you're at low frequency, like I am, like I say, it's an open invitation, an open door for the technology to tell you negative things, to make you angry to where it'll be like them whispering in your ear, do that, hit out, you're angry, hit out. It won't tell you to keep calm and to see it for what it really is, that you're really hitting out maybe at something that you don't want to hurt, because that person also is of the matrix and angry and getting the mind parasites whispering ears. That's how you end up in an argument or in a war with another human being, which is what I'm been involved with for the last couple of years. A continual war, not only with the matrix technological real earth reality, but a personal battle with individual human being, to where you're hurting that you want to protect, and they're doing the same. It's a frequency battle war between two people. That's what you call an argument. That's when when your mood has been suppressed, your emotions are brought down to the lowest level, your feelings are brought down to anger and frustration and animosity, etc. All these negative things, to where you feel trapped, you feel powerless, you feel angry at other people, and then because they're part of the matrix, so they're part of the suppression. So you're going to be angry at them. And some of those are still real human beings. So they're really not meant to be those which you're meant to be angry at, particularly if they are close to you. So then you have the human battles between people that should be should be, like I say, combining and collaborating and part of the positive force against a matrix that's a negative force, but instead they become part of the negative force. I don't know if I put that right. I'm pretty sure I didn't. But either way, to fold up. See, you've got a negative person trying to make a positive video under negative circumstances and saying it's checkmate in a matrix. So it's very difficult. But like I say, you will have to read your own environment, but just be aware that there are parts of the matrix. For all I know, the whole thing, but it could only be parts. I can only speak on my own environment. So if parts of the matrix are closed down and it's checkmate, that means that the other parts, sadly, have been let down by my part, because if it's checkmate in my part, that means the other parts have to do double the work. They have to raise the frequency double. They have to rise above the matrix double and have to find others that combine. That's probably how I would have to say that. And that is not how it's meant to be, and that is that puts a lot more onus on the human beings that want to survive in the matrix, but also hope to turn it round. Look, that's another story. The turning around of the matrix, which was what I originally thought when I made some videos. You know, that may not be possible, and maybe it was never meant to be possible. On the other hand, it could be still possible in some parts. You know, the idea of the, I've done this in other videos and I've, mentioned this, but it does depend on what the situation is and what the situation is meant to be, what the bottom line of this matrix really is now. All I could say is that if you are a human being, you must try to protect your spirituality. You must try to protect, just at an individual level, your own, I think the word is, I heard it 12 months ago, sovereignty. See, I've tried to find words, but it really means just to protect yourself as a spiritual human being, because that's all that's important, really. The matrix could literally be gone. The earth could be gone. And maybe if it's not what you think it is, it may or may not matter as much either. That's another thing. I do personally think that, I still see some reality in it, even though I feel that my particular realm is not something that can be salvaged. And also, I don't feel that, one person, like I just make the one person thing, it wouldn't be possible with one person just thinking positive. Even I would honestly say that it could even be likely that one person, even at a higher level, unless you can infiltrate the frequency or the minds of the human beings. I can't put this right. And it makes it sound so important, but it is important, and it's like I said before, there's two ways of influencing a matrix. You have the power of influence, which is like by your direct information, your conversation, your, like I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing now, is what I would say is the matrix technological means of influence, or their means of changing human beings' thinking or feelings about things, etc. This is not what I think is the chosen way to do it, or the correct way to do it, or the chosen human natural way to do it. No. But it is still a vast means, and it is the way of the matrix, and it's the way of the demigods, as I've said before. The frequency and vibration, if it's high in a real human being, when I say a real human being, I mean a human being that still is not of the matrix, that's got some spirituality, that sees that a human being is a natural being, and that they're the natural life source, and that is far and above the technological matrix. You have to come from that viewpoint, okay? If you don't come from that viewpoint, then none of this makes sense, and it's not worth listening to. But you could still listen, but you probably dismiss it and think it's silly. Just as I think the matrix is silly. I think everything that is negative and illogical and not a benefit is the matrix, you know. Of course, if I say everything that is natural and spiritual and human is better, it doesn't look that way in reality, because it's been vastly overtaken. But that's because of the numbers and because of the reality that's been gradually allowed to change into something that is now not conducive to a human being. So yes, technology appears to be the way out and appears to be natural to a human being, even though it's not, if you want to look at that. But either way, I'm still trying to fold up here. I'm really not a very good representation of the human being, no. No, the demigods are a better representation of a human being, even though they really represent technology and everything that is anti-life and anti-human. Even though some of them may or may not know it, you know, just as a lot of humans don't. When I say, you know, I'm not saying that they're not human, but they are not for humans at the very least. What they really are and where they really come from, how they come into being, who knows? I can't say that. Because even just a real human being, once it gets taken over by the matrix, has different belief systems, thinks differently, you know, that person is then they're not accessible. You cannot access their mind anymore. You can't tell them or communicate with them anymore. They've gone to a different way of thinking, which is what happens with all of us. We think different. Like, a lot of people might not think the way I think, so they're like, all of a sudden the communication's gone. They're like, you don't exist because you're wrong. You don't see reality. I think that they don't see reality. They think that I don't see reality. And some people think, oh, we should have some middle ground. Well, I would have agreed with that in the past, but I would say it's too past middle ground now, because the matrix is all-consuming. It could only go one way or the other. No, maybe not. Maybe middle ground still. Look, while you have at least a middle ground, I suppose you still have the potential for some human beings to revert back to being natural and what they were and what they're meant to be and what they really are. I mean, that's what they really are anyway. I mean, you can be anything you want to be. You know, I can be a cat if I want. If I want to say I want to be a cat, I can think I'm a cat, but it doesn't make me a cat. But if other people agree that I'm entitled to say I'm a cat, well then I can do it and I can believe it. And I could even make myself look like a cat if I want to. I've heard that some people actually do that. But, I saw a video on something where someone made themselves look like a cat. But, but it doesn't change the reality that what I was really meant to be and what would have been a benefit to me, I have dismissed and walked away from. But that's a choice, and that's, human beings have always been given little choices. Less and less, because if you give yourself over to other people's opinion and to other people, a bit like in that movie Life for Ruth, where the woman married the fella and he had strong beliefs, strong religious beliefs that she really didn't fully agree with, but she liked him so much that she adopted those. You see, that's a similar thing. And that was the whole point of that movie, was that then you had the problem when a crisis hits and, you might lose something because of going along with someone else. But either way, that's not the point, because I don't want to talk about that movie anyway, and also that isn't my actual belief on that movie. Because I don't necessarily agree that the wife or the woman was correct or incorrect to make that choice. I just use these things as an example, but sometimes I have to go against even my own basic premise if I'm making a point. Because like I say, with movies and anything, you can look at them a whole lot of different ways and they have many different angles, and either way I'm rambling and lost the plot here again. Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, which I started to say half an hour ago, you could theoretically, and maybe we might have even had in the past, a human being that was here, a human being that was at full potential in every possible way. In other words, someone who is in the matrix, but who is at full human potential at a spiritual, physical, psychological, all the different levels. Okay, I'm tired now, so I'm sorry. This is important, but I'm tired. You could have had a human being that was at the highest level in all areas, what I'd call the highest spiritual human being, And I would have to say that, like, as I heard someone else say in a video a while back, we've had many people on the earth, some we're familiar with. I'm not familiar with most of them. I'm not familiar with most of, prominent people of different denominations. I'm very limited that way. But none of these, supposing you had one, right, that was the highest spiritual that's been on the earth. We still have an earth matrix now, as this person in the video pointed out, to where nothing has changed. In fact, it's gone right back into the negative. But you see, what I'm trying to say is this, is that what I was trying to say at the start of the video, it's no reflection on you as a human being. If you lose an unwinnable battle, because if okay, so we're meant to be able to raise the frequency and all this sort of stuff. We are meant to, and it would be happier for us if we did, even at a personal level, because no one wants to be miserable and angry all the time. No one wants to be at odds with other people, because it doesn't really make you feel very good. I know that even in my own personal life. Sometimes, you're like, I'm glad that person's gone. But that's kind of negative, it's like you're always trying to, losing it here. I should get down to more details. But either way, the point of that person's video was that regardless of who has been in the matrix in the past, the present or the future, no one individual, even at their very highest level, has really been able to change this entire matrix or this entire earth, depending on how you look at it. You know, in fact, you know, you must bear in mind that probably, even if you raise your frequency, probably if you are at the highest spiritual level, if you choose to interact with the matrix or the demigods or the minions of the matrix, the disciples of the matrix, the people of the matrix, the humans of the matrix even, you know, you will incur the wrath of the matrix God entity and the matrix. It will come down on you, you know, because, you know, and that will depend on how many are of the matrix at the time. But if you look at even the past that we're told, which I don't know if it's true or not, I really don't. The greatest human beings that we could probably think of have always succumbed to the matrix, if you want to look at it that way. Maybe their teachings might go on, maybe their ideas might go on for a while, maybe their words might go on until they get all mixed up and eventually muddled up by time, because, you know, everything is lost in translation, as they say. That was a movie too. You know, everything gets lost in translation. And in fact, every story gets lost in translation, because if I tell you something now and then you tell someone else, you'll probably twist my words around. And hey, certainly if you're doing it with my stuff, it will be lost in translation by probably the second or third person, because I'm not translating it very good even now. But you see what I'm saying? That, you know, so truth, or what is even if truth comes out of someone's mouth, it will be lost in translation or lost over time, whether it be in book form or verbally or however, or technologically. It won't matter. It will get lost. And the matrix, if you allow for the reality that we're living in a matrix, the matrix will do this, and the matrix will muddle things up to where the matrix always keeps you playing in the matrix. Yeah, that's the way it is, I guess. And so you see what I'm saying. So it's no real. Sure, some of us might think that we're, you know, let the side down, shall we say, or let other human beings down, and we have. Because if you're over a lifetime like myself, basically been negative to, you know, human beings that are closest to you, but you don't realise that those human beings are a limited number. You tend to think, oh, it's one big world full of many, many human beings. A lot of people have that attitude even with animals. They're like, oh, well, look, that one cat isn't more special than another. That one bird isn't more special than another bird. Even though you know that they have different personalities and that they do have different abilities, you know, some might be more playful than others. I've been told this by other people. This is not my own thing. You know, like you'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, I like that animal more because it's more athletic. I like that animal more because it's more affectionate. I like that animal more because it does more tricks. I like that animal more because it's more loyal. I like that animal more because it follows me more. It does what I tell it to more. I like that other animal more because it's more independent and doesn't bother me. A bit more like myself, dare I say, because I think animals should be not subservient necessarily to a human being. But if they choose to be, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like if an animal chooses that it wants a human company, the same as if a human, but not so much if a human chooses an animal's company. That's just my own view, because the human has the more physical dominance. So then it becomes more like, oh, that's like the Matrix. Then it becomes more like dominance or suppression as opposed to choice. Whereas if an animal chooses to serve you, shall we say, who are you to argue against it? But if you make the animal subservient to you, that's because you've got more power, because you've got more physical, because you've got more technology. The same as if you hunt an animal, or if you, or you take an animal into a different environment. You're deciding. The animal hasn't chosen it; you've chosen it. But that's just my viewpoint on that too. But I just throw that in. But yeah, if it's a chosen thing, that's a different matter. And it's very debatable, I suppose. Some people would probably say to me, well, look, the animal didn't choose to come into my comfortable place. But hey, isn't it better in my comfortable place than out in the wild where it might get killed by predators and might have to go without food, has to hunt for its food, or maybe if it's on the street, it might or wherever, it might be more at risk and not have am I not doing the right thing by me making the choice and taking it into a safe, comfortable, but I'm trying to find the word, even though it is a more limited environment in some ways. In other words, it's a bit like if you make a house cat. The cat can't wander around all over the place, can it? But it's a comfortable house cat. I think I heard a famous person say that they're quite happy being a very comfortable, well-paid, rich and famous house cat. I won't say who it was, but that's obviously a demigod of the Matrix. They're openly telling me that they like being a pampered, looked after, yes, controlled servant of the Matrix. They like being a house cat because that was their exact statement. They were like, hey, there are people, like, in other words, this person's well aware of the technology, so they're like, hey, I don't mind being part of the technology, even though they were actually talking about its dangers too, because this is the Matrix, as I say. We have these demigods, but they're openly saying, they're not saying it every day though, you have to catch them, because when I say catch them, because they like to give you a little bit of honesty, they like to give you a little bit of, I don't know why. Do they have to? Do they want to? Are some of them a little bit more generous than others that way, or a little bit more hoping that some humans might see something, that they're a house cat, but they're saying, hey, maybe it'd be better if you became a street alley cat, but hey, I'm happy being a house cat because I'm the top house cat. Because my house might be bigger than your street. I might be in such a mansion and I have more, and because I'm of the Matrix, I'm given more freedom anyway, and I'm given all the benefits provided I serve the Matrix. It's like that, isn't it? But they're still like saying you can never be a pampered house cat of the Matrix. You can't be the chosen ones of the Matrix. So, maybe, you can only be an alley cat that will be struggling for your survival. But if you are at a higher spiritual level, and if you believe in being human, whereas I as a house cat do not believe in that anymore. I'm happy being a technological house cat. I'm happy being a pampered house cat of the Matrix. If you were at a higher spiritual level, you would be happier being the stray street or forest cat that, although it might not have the technological comforts of the Matrix or the security or the safety of the Matrix, it's still free while it's living, or relatively free. That's if anything is free in a Matrix. Nothing is free at a physical level in the matrix, and everything costs you something, one way or the other. And even money is of the matrix, as many people have said. So it's like that, isn't it? But I'm trying to be too fancy here, and these are not areas of my expertise or even my interest, really. But I do realise now that everything is part of the matrix. So, the things that you need for your survival, and if you're at survival mode, as we tend to be, I know that I feel at survival mode all the time. More so than before I became aware of the matrix, which is interesting, because I was at a physical survival mode then, but I was starting to relax a bit. And now it's very much at that really strong survival mode, because you're aware of the power of the matrix, because you're aware that the matrix has full dominion over everyone and everything, literally, and that they are of the matrix. That does create insecurity for a human being. It really does. And it does create fear. So that fear is a bad thing, because it opens up the negative thinking and the low frequency too. You can't be giving off a good frequency if you're in fear. And that fear spreads too, because, if you're walking around fearful and, other people then become fearful, well, everyone becomes in fear, and that is then the matrix, because the matrix is a fear-driven reality. It's all about fear of losing everything, fear of others getting the upper hand in some way. It's all fear. It's all negative in a way. But at the same time, there's always the good talk and all the good speeches and the human side too. But that's the superficiality of the matrix, I personally think, because it's underneath it all. A lot of real humans are in a state of fear, and if they're in a state of fear, that is not a good thing for the matrix. Not while humans are in it, and not while humans still have the basic life force of it in a funny kind of way. I'm not explaining this well, and I don't even know what I'm talking about. I can't get it into a concise way. Because another thing too is that, if the matrix is changing, it's a bit like technology. You don't need humans, even in this real world, supposing we're still in the real world, supposing we're still in a natural world, we well know that technology takes over human physical manpower at a physical level, to where if a technological device or a machine or a computer or technology, they're all the same thing, can take over what a man can physically do, that man is no longer needed. So then that person is no longer needed in the matrix, and it works at a psychological and vibrational and physical level too. I have not put this well. I'm going to fold up because I'm not making any sense. I'm very sorry. Okay,